635-1825 now. That's 1-800-635-1825 to take advantage of this 4-pack special. You'll get 40% off 2 MyPillow premium pillows and 2 Go Anywhere pillows. MyPillow.com with the promo code SKY. Better sleep starts with MyPillow.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont in the Pass area this afternoon, our high should be 57. Today mostly sunny as winds gust to 30 miles an hour. There's a good chance of rain tonight with mostly cloudy skies. A low 42 with winds to 30 miles an hour. There's a chance of a shower Sunday. We'll have a mostly sunny day with a high 49 with winds to 25 miles an hour. For the Inland Empire, we'll have mostly sunny skies this afternoon with a high 59. For the desert cities, it'll be sunny, our high 66. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Arcade Expo 3.0. Yes, Arcade Expo 3.0 is here. Join us for 3 days of free play on over 1,100 retro and modern arcade games and pinball machines. St. Patrick's Day weekend, Friday, March 17th through Sunday, March 19th. The Museum of Pinball is located right off the 10 freeway in Banning, California. Join us for one day or all 3. For more information on Arcade Expo 3.0, log on to arcadeexpo.com and get your tickets today.
Will you challenge the Black Knight again?
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
And it's time, Constitution Radio, KMET 1490 AM. And on the air with us, we have Dennis Jackson, the executive director of Enemies Within the Movie and from Bravis Corporation. And we have our good friend Alex Ferguson, somewhere hunkered down in a bunker in Los Angeles County. Good to see you, Alex. How you doing?
Well, I'm just fine.
You're just fine? You're relaxing? You're calling into the radio? Life is good?
Yeah, I'm still waiting on that sound defeating headset that I ordered. I'm hoping that the sound will be all right.
And then we got Dennis Jackson in the room with us, in the studio with us, should I say. And Dennis is attached to Enemies Within Movie, Enemies Within the Movie, enemieswithinmovie.com, and has been enjoying the time with, at Dennis, I was talking to, I got a chance to, I bumped into a listener. Let me put it that way. I bumped into a listener the other day, and the person says to me, the last few weeks you've had quite a lively program. Huh. So your edition and Kurt Nordahl, who's not going to be able to join us today, you guys, I guess, make it lively, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I hope so. We'll see how we do today.
See how we do.
2 hours to go.
My daily tasks are they surround spreading constitutional literacy. That's a big deal to me. I teach the classes, and I write, and so on and so forth. And I get this question all the time: does Trump understand the Constitution? And that's an interesting question. Now, I can't pretend to know what is inside his head. I don't know what he knows. So I have to judge his constitutional literacy by what he does, what he says, so on and so forth. And based on what he says it does, I think he's pretty much where most presidents are, actually. They know a little bit, but not enough to be able to say that oath and mean it. That said, we've only had 2 presidents probably in the last 150 years that had true constitutional literacy. That would be Ronald Reagan, and I've learned that over the years, some of the things he said, that he really did understand the basic concepts. And Calvin Coolidge. Aside from that, since Lincoln, and since even before Lincoln, I really can't name any others. So if we're going to judge a president on whether or not they're worthy based on whether or not they have constitutional literacy, well, you've got 2 presidents to choose from over the last 150 years. But I did want to say this. Most of what Trump has done or is recommending is constitutional. I'll give you an example. The executive orders. Executive orders are supposed to execute the laws, not make law, modify law, something like that. They're used for executing the laws. In other words, delegating authority down through the executive branch to execute the laws of the United States, or they can be proclamations. That's what executive orders are for. And so far, from what I've seen, based out of his executive orders, that's essentially what they've been doing. So, for the most part, he has been acting along constitutional lines. Now, I did leave out one president. Actually, I should add in there presidents that understood the Constitution or understood the Constitution, and that's Barack Obama. I actually think he does understand it fairly well. The problem with Barack Obama is he doesn't like it. He disagrees with the principles. He disagrees with the philosophies. Now, that said, Alex, I want to bring you into this. I think that most communists, socialists, Marxists that want to change this country, I think they understand the Constitution more than the average person, because they want to know their enemy and they want to know what they want to change and how to work around it. Do you agree with me?
Oh, absolutely. As far as Obama goes, there's no question that he understands it well enough to be dismantling it.
Right, exactly. And you know, I'm the kind of person where I understand that if you are going to be effective in what you do, you have to understand the way the opposition thinks. So I spend a lot of time trying to learn about what the opposition thinks, what their point of view is, so on and so forth. And so my question is, and once again, you're one that has spent a lot of time studying the Marxists and communists. Do they do the same thing? They spend a lot of time studying their enemy, their opposition, so that they know how to defeat them?
Well, it goes from individual to individual. I would love to see Obama's college records.
Right.
That would tell us a lot about what he actually knows. But many of these people who you see them interviewed, the radicals in the street at that level. They ask them questions, and it's all crickets. They don't know squat. But the intellectual leaders of these revolutions absolutely have studied their enemy.
All right, Dennis, you've been listening to what I've had to say here. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think they have a reasonably good understanding of how the government's supposed to work, because if you look at the strategy that they're implementing, they are at least attacking the American culture.
Right.
You know, whether it be family, whether it be society, whether it be anything. But
well, they know what works, so they got to break down what works. And what works is the central family, nuclear family, that's the word I'm looking for, nuclear family as building blocks of the system, limited government, keeping federal government out of local business, being a godly nation, right? Work. So those are the things they're trying to destroy.
So they attack those, trying to undermine the American principles, but at the same time, when you look at the people that they back through unions and others that are in, the Congress and,
right.
in California's legislature, you look at the laws that they pass, they are picking their targets very well to undermine the country. So do they do that truly understanding the Constitution, and how do they get around it? They don't talk much about it unless the Republicans are beating them up. Then all of a sudden they're supposedly experts on the Constitution, because they'll say they'll quote some chapter and verse, even though it's generally taken out of context. So,
well, now you've got there's a video out there titled "Muslims and Mexicans Conspiring to Overthrow the Government," and you've got the La Raza and groups like that, Muslim Brotherhood, and they're out there spewing rhetoric that could be considered seditious. There was a poll by the Center for Security Policy in June of 2015 of 600 Muslim Americans, and the question was, should Muslims in America should have the choice of being governed according to Sharia? 51% agreed with that statement, only 32% disagreed. You've got Obama-linked activists, the Obama shadow government. And they actually have a training manual for protesting and overthrowing the Trump government. We have a report of teachers being fired for pro-Trump comments and or being reassigned for pro-Trump comments, not in the classroom necessarily, but even outside the workplace. You've got Sarah Silverman calling for the military overthrow of fascist Donald Trump. All of this, in my opinion, is this not the Democrats and Muslims and people of that ilk openly plotting to overthrow the government? And if that's the case, is that not treason, Alex?
Well, I think it's obviously so. One of the things I'd like to say, though, is that we have moved so far away from, our government has moved so far away from the Constitution that arguing the fine points is somewhat senseless, because we don't get that down to that level. We get a kind of a cartoon version of what the Constitution is supposed to be all about.
Right.
But in the meantime,
my first book was 25 Myths of the United States Constitution, because even your quote-unquote conservatives have been taught to believe certain myths that aren't even true.
Sure, exactly. As far as these people being seditious, there's no question that this is treason. There's no better word for it. But trying to make that case in today's environment with the media so far against us, we're going to have to wait until they become more blatant.
Well, the words that they want to use, whether it be Farrakhan, whether it be Democrats, whether it be the socialists, whoever they are, they can call for the overthrow if that's actually what they're saying, and they can claim they can say that because of the First Amendment rights of free speech, and that's what they're very good at. Is they try to clothe themselves in supposedly American principles, free speech, fairness, by saying whether it be wealth distribution, income distribution, using the word rights, because we do believe in rights, but what's a right, and you can go into that argument. But they use these American words and wrap themselves in the American flag, and they do have these flags out there as they have their protests, not all of them, but some of them, and they are plotting. They would overthrow the Constitution if they could, but they feel they have a constitutional right to do that. And I think the trick is the leadership of the country has to be able to say that, yeah, you're entitled to free speech, and you can be critical, but where do you cross the line between that and actually being seditious? And some of these people definitely are, and the leadership ought to be pursued along that line.
One of the, when we talk about treason and working against the American government and doing things illegally behind the scenes, one of the headlines out there is from dailymail.com, which is a UK site, United Kingdom, British site. Here's the headline: exclusive, a legal fundraiser for the Clintons made secret tape because he feared being assassinated over what he knew and used it to reveal Democrats' bid to silence him.
Well, this goes all the way back to Bill Clinton. This was in Hillary.
Right.
So, and that was in the media.
Well, this has to do with the Clinton campaign and finance and scandal and all that jazz. But, I mean, more is coming to light even now. And Hillary's a part of this. I mean, so this backdoor stuff, receiving money and doing things behind the door with the Chinese, with Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries who are supposed to be our quote-unquote enemy, is that not treasonous? Or what about the accusations that Trump had ties to Russia, but yet we're finding out, for example, and this is something that's come out a little bit recently from WikiLeaks, that Megan Roos, who is the daughter of Podesta is connected to Jewel Unlimited, which is a company that receives millions from a Putin-connected Russian government fund. And 75,000 shares of Jewel Unlimited stock has been transferred to John Podesta's daughter, Megan Roos, and he knew about it and he facilitated it. So, who's got their foot in the tub with the Russians?
Well, the socialist agenda is being implemented by the Democratic Party. It's not the Republican Party in general. Now, there are rhinos and there are some misinformed or wrongly intended guys in the GOP. But if you look at the crisp lines that exist between what Hillary was saying and what Donald was saying, her agenda is far more supportive of socialism and would be far more supported by the Communist Party, which goes through the unions and supports the Democrats. These guys aren't running around trying to help out us to strengthen our borders,
right?
And to strengthen our economy and to strengthen our military. I mean, those aren't principles you generally find, in the left wing.
Well, yeah, while at the same time, though, we've got the Democrats screaming treason against Mike Flynn, Pence, because he knew, Flynn had told Pence that, or fooled Pence, but they're saying, well, he knew that Flynn had talked to the Russians, and President Trump did too, and so this is a treasonous activity between the three of them because they were talking to the Russians to overthrow the Obama government while they were still civilians. This is the way it's being explained by the left. The
left does all that and more.
Is that not a concern, Alex?
Well, to go back to your earlier question, since its inception, the American Communist Movement has defined itself as the extension of the American Revolution. Their claim is that the revolution stopped too soon. It didn't go far enough. And that they're simply continuing that revolution, and as a consequence, they are the true patriots, and those who are resistant, the conservatives, are counter-revolutionaries, and basically that makes them in the same category as traitors.
There's a rock song out there that's on the airwaves. It's a new song called "We Are the 99%. The Future is Here." They see themselves as the future. They see themselves as this benevolent, utopian future of America. But this is just Marxist.
The only thing they have in common with the American Revolution is the word revolution. Okay. And that's just like saying all war is the same. I mean, war is fought, in self-defense. That's what pulled us into, World War II.
Right.
War is fought, for national security, a preemptive strike. You can understand that. A war can be fought to support allies and others. But when they say that it's a continuation of the American Revolution, what they need to do is look at the principles behind the revolution that our founding fathers went through, in 1776 and earlier, and look at those principles compared to the principles that the continuing revolution, as the communists would say, they're fighting now on our behalf. And the principles are black and white. There is no overlap. So, they're just using they're using the word revolution to continue the American Revolution as kind of a way to suck people in. And just hope that they don't pay attention to any of the details. Again, wrapping their comments around Americana, rather be a red, white, and blue poster board, even though if it says destroy America, if it's red, white, and blue, it must be good because those are our colors. I mean, how naive and stupid are the American people?
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, the communists developed a slogan which was communism is 20th century Americanism. And it was very popular and very successful. But the Central Committee in Russia put a stop to it because they didn't want anybody to think that there was something good about Americanism. An example of how they take our symbols for freedom and democracy and turn them against us is, if you notice during the 30s and 40s when they were backing the Soviets, they had Abraham Lincoln as a symbol, but he did not have a beard. It was a slightly different Abraham Lincoln, and that's what they were trying to say was, again, capitalism is slavery, and therefore Lincoln is the symbol of the communist revolution.
The anti-establishment wave movement that Trump benefited from, that is now beginning to spread across the globe. We'll explain how and why and more about that when we return.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at AllStar Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. AllStar Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
We are the socialists. You will be assimilated. Your individual liberties, personal freedoms, and mental individuality will be added to our own. Resistance is futile.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the business's advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com. Welcome back to Constitution Radio. I am Douglas V. Gibbs, your host, douglasvgibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com, and on the air with me I have Dennis Jackson from Bravos Corp and enemieswithinmovie.com and Alex Ferguson. You can look him up at conservativecannonade.org. And when the Founding Fathers first created this system, they believed it to be a new world order. That's the term they used. Fascinating how even that's been hijacked since. But the idea was that they were creating a system of liberty they hoped would spread across the world. That America would become an empire, but not the kind of empire that invades and controls or takes over militarily, but one that spreads its liberty by showing how important liberty is and how it can work in a society. In other words, become an empire because everybody wants to join it. Now, Alexander Hamilton had some other ideas. He believed also in creating an American empire, and the man was for lack of a better way, a patriot and a war hero from the Revolutionary War. Incredible individual, but politically he was a monarchist, a nationalist. He believed in a bigger government because he felt that the people were not bright enough to take care of themselves politically or to govern themselves. Well, over the years, over the centuries, the last couple centuries, the American ideal America has become the shining beacon on the hill, and other nations have tried to emulate what we do and what we have, but it took Donald J. Trump to really set it into motion. When the Donald J. Trump revolution, speaking of revolution, began, I believe that was one of the factors that encouraged Brexit, for Britain to leave the European Union and seek its own sovereignty away from the European Union. Now we're seeing this wave of anti-establishmentism spreading to other places. A number of countries, a number of political systems, and in France, Le Pen, Marine Le Pen, more specifically, is her name, and she is someone who is seizing on the idea that bringing in these Muslim refugees is creating violence, and she's railing against the country's ruling class for allowing it. And she is being called the female Trump of Europe. What are your thoughts? Let's start with you this time, Dennis.
Well, I believe that nationalism, just like you can have pride in your own neighborhood,
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. And countries, nation states, whatever,
nationalism in the sense of a patriotism, love of country, but
right.
just not love of government.
Right. I'm talking about nationalism. I think of Americanism. I don't
Right,
think
okay.
of that. So, you can only be strong if you yourself are strong, and I know Alan Cranston and the boys 30 or more years ago in the Congress were trying to get people to sign on what they call the Declaration of Interdependence. And I think that's been resurrected again. and what it's saying is that the United States, instead of being independent, we're now going to sign a Declaration of interdependence, such as the UN and treaties and all the rest.
We're told all the time that's inevitable. We're in a global economy. We're in a global system with technology.
But for the EU to function, they have given up a lot of their own individual powers, kind of like the states gave up powers, to delegated, to the federal government with the Constitution. They've never fully done the euro. Several of the countries have not fully done that. They wanted to keep their currency. And now they're backing out. The UK's done it. You've got France talking about it. You've got other countries that are
Netherlands and talking about getting rid of the euro.
And so what was the real reason for the EU? Was it to prosper goodness and light throughout the whole place, or was it really more of a power grab?
The excuse was to compete because, Europe, they felt that the countries individually couldn't compete economically with China, the United States. So it was to compete economically. At least that was the original excuse.
Well, there's nothing about banding together, 5 or 10 or 20 countries in Europe that have a certain standard of living and a certain cost for minimum wage and benefits and all the rest. And putting 3 of those countries together compared to one singly isn't going to make them lower their cost economically to where they're going to compete with China.
Right.
So you could say it's kind of like NAFTA, it's kind of like CAFTA and some of the other North American ones where we're trading freely without borders as far as tariffs. And that's supposedly good for everybody, but is it?
Well, I was talking to interestingly enough, a Muslim woman on Thursday at lunch, and a part of our discussion did go towards immigration. And I told her, she had said that she was an American born here in the United States, in Chicago or something like that, but her parents immigrated here, and so they immigrated here back in the 60s, 50s, 60s. And I told her, and she was a very interesting individual, very easy to talk to, and a very different attitude than most Muslims I've talked to. And she talked about how she loves this country. And one of her frustrations has been that many members of the Muslim community that come here want to try to force, if you're not like them, then there's something wrong with you, and they're going to try to force change in their new country, and that bothered her. And I told her, I said, well, that's what's fascinating about immigration. Have you seen that? Is in the past, immigrants came here to become American, to change themselves, to be American. Now they're coming to America to change America to be more like them. So the attitude has changed. And I think this is a large part of why we have an anti-establishment movement, is because it's not just the United States, it's in Europe where you have this refugees, immigrants, so on and so forth, that are trying to change the face of the Western civilization. Western civilization has been prosperous and is successful, not because of foreigners coming in to make it a foreign concept, but because of foreigners coming in and assimilating into the system and buying into the idea of limited government, a democratically elected government in some cases, or in our case, a republic, and so on and so forth. And now we're seeing this attempt to transform our system into what they came from. Now, it's not that didn't exist. I know the communists were trying to do that and all that, but it just seems to be more widespread and more common now when it comes to the immigrants. So, Alex, I want you to jump in real quick. What do you think?
Going back to Alexander Hamilton, his great sin was statism.
Right.
It is my opinion, and I think I can back it up anytime you want, that when the Founding Fathers created the American Constitution, they solved the lifelong, the centuries-long, eons-long problem of humanity is how to govern ourselves. We created a society that gave us the maximum in freedom, the maximum in power of the citizens, the maximum in prosperity. All we had to do was let the world go our way, and it would be the Garden of Eden again, if allowed to go on unhindered. But along comes Satan, and he says, "Okay, here's a system." And the system, as I study it, the 100 million people that were murdered in the 20th century, the amount of torture and enslavement, it's the worst system that has ever, communism is the worst system that has ever been imposed upon humanity. And yet, like this guy that the book I'm reviewing right today, a guy who's an aristocrat, has all the advantages, has the education, turns around and supports Stalin, the greatest murderer and torturer in history. There's something evil. It's pure evil going on, and it defies a complete understanding.
Well, if they were completely honest in what they're doing, you could understand them. I think part of the problem is they have a selfish motive. They understand what they're doing, and they don't care. They're just out for themselves, and they don't care about the rights of others. And I think there's a number of people, I can only speak for the most part to people here that I see more of in the country, and even some of the political leftists that I do not agree with. But I think some of them sincerely think, and to me they've taken into Kool-Aid of the American emblems and the wording and the approach of the leftists. The challenge to me is for the people in this country to truly understand what the differences are and the principles and the end game of the left versus, quote, the right, and understand that the right will protect the needs of the left. If you want to be different, you can be different. We allow that. We allow free debate. I made a note a couple of weeks ago when I was in here that all you got to look at the last election. I mean, there were 17 Republicans that wanted to run, and all 17 got on stage for the first couple of debates, and then they started cutting it down. The Democrats, they had a prince of politics, one of their governors of Maryland, Malley. They wouldn't give him the time of day. Jim Webb, they wouldn't give the time of day.
They're also the party of the superdelegates, to try to...
Well, I understand that. But here the Democrats had maybe 5 guys running, and they cut it down to 2 unfairly. And of the 2, that was unfair because they were conspiring against Sanders. Right. So they don't even let the people that have experience and credibility of office...
It's all about the political elite. Only the elite rulers know best.
Well, but they don't even allow candidates of their own make that have experience and supposedly a resume to even run.
Because they had already
pre-selecting.
decided who they wanted it to be, and it didn't matter what anybody else thought.
Well, my point is, if they don't allow Governor Malley to speak, what makes you think they're going to allow just a regular Democrat to speak?
Here's the thing about this whole thing. I mean, Geert Wilders, who has been under fire in the past over his... backlash against Islam, and he's head of the Party of Freedom in the Netherlands. He said this about this anti-establishment movement that has been going on. Quote, "The genie will not go back into the bottle again, whether you like it or not," unquote. I mean, a growing number of Americans and Europeans are rebelling against decades of government-imposed multiculturalism, leftism, politically correct speech codes, mass migration from the Muslim world, And in Europe's establishment parties, they haven't been addressing the concerns of ordinary voters. They've tried to silence dissent by branding any naysayers as xenophobes, Islamophobes, and neo-Nazis. And the Democrats do the same thing here. And in many respects, France and Germany are proving that Europeans, or at least the leadership, does not understand the meaning of Brexit. They are almost religiously following the path that provoked the EU's current existential crisis. In other words, they're doing the same thing the Democrats have been doing. They're doubling down on what beat them. And Nigel Farage, former head of Britain's UKIP party and who led the effort for the United Kingdom to leave the EU in the first place, said this, quote, "There is a genuine feeling that Trump taking over the White House is part of a bigger global movement. Our critics, looking at Trump's candidacy and his speeches, would call it a rise of popularism. I would say it's simply a return to nation-state democracy," which is something that you were talking about, right. Nation-state democracy and proper values. In other words, sovereignty. This is a genuine political revolution. That was Nigel Farage. And then Roger Koppel, the editor-in-chief of Die. I am going to
you already
completely destroy this. So DIEWELTWOCHE in Switzerland. Here's what he said. "This disruption is fruitful. The taboos of the last few years are now fully on the agenda. Illegal immigration, Islam, the nonsense of open borders, the dysfunctional EU, the free movement of people, jobs, law, and order. Trump's predecessors did not want to talk about it, but the majority of voters did. This is democracy." And so, Donald J. Trump has inspired a movement that's now spreading across Europe. And Europe's main anti-establishment political parties are getting together and coordinating and working together now, creating a political strategy to mobilize potentially millions of disillusioned voters in upcoming elections in Germany and the Netherlands and France. And once again, Marine Le Pen, the leader of the French National Front, she's, the female Trump, they say, and she's rising quickly in the polls to the point where the left doesn't know what to do. They don't know how to handle her. Well, they are panicking, just like the Democrats here. In fact, leftist riots have been going on in Paris, much like what we've been seeing here, because all they know how to do is throw a temper tantrum. They don't know what else to do with this.
Why is there an immigration or refugee problem?
Well, it goes back to the root of who you're bringing in and the fact that there's not proper vetting.
Why are they wanting to leave where they're coming from? They're leaving the Middle East. They're leaving, South America. And they're leaving wherever they're leaving. They're trying to. Why can't they stay in their own country? What's the problem?
Well, poverty. But what does the poverty come from, Alex? So it comes from a bad political system that fails.
They're fleeing failed political system where they have had generational problems, and they're coming to countries that have a different political system, that have a higher standard of living, and they're fleeing to them, whether it be Western Europe or the United States or wherever it is. And the concern for the countries that they're fleeing to is we need to maintain the standards we've had, because that's what's put us in a position to where you want to be here.
All right, Alex, you got the final word on this.
Yeah, a friend of mine who is not an educated man one time told me that the problem with immigration is that these people have screwed up their country so badly that it's impossible to live in it. So they come here, and now they're trying to screw up this country.
Because they don't understand what they did wrong in the first place or something.
Well, I think that's a key point, because the people that are coming here aren't the power brokers from those other countries. They're the victims of the principles of those countries. But because they don't have those principles there and they haven't been taught them, they're just coming in here all natural, whatever they are, and hoping for a better way. But they need to be educated as to why Western culture, or especially Americanism, why it's been successful, why it was different. And if they try to undo that, then, the golden goose, that's it. It's over.
All right. Question on the table for after the break. Is the liberal left ignoring Planned Parenthood's profiling of minority neighborhoods when we return.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President, Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com.
The true patriots of AllStar Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by AllStar Collision is washed, detailed, the headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back. Constitution Radio right here on KMET 1490 AM. Every Saturday, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 2 hours, folks. So after this segment, we go to break, come back for the second hour. Actually bumped into a listener earlier this week who had been used to the hour, had missed the last few episodes, and then when he heard me say second hour, he got all excited because he says not only does he enjoy the show, but now it's more lively. And he really enjoys us having Dennis and Kurt in the studio. Kurt is not with us today. He'll be back hopefully with us next week. But we have Dennis Jackson in the studio with us from Bravos Corp and EnemiesWithinMovie.com. And, of course, our usual brilliance in L.A. County, Alex Ferguson. All right, it has always fascinated me that the liberal left is against tobacco but supports marijuana. I've never been able to figure that one out. I've always believed marijuana to be, first of all, you're still smoking, you're still putting smoke in your lungs, and, whether it's tobacco or marijuana, it still can't be good for your lungs. Anyway, and then on top of it, it's a drug, and I know they claim it, they have their claims, but I've always fascinated. You're against tobacco, but you support marijuana. So, once smoking is good, once smoking is bad. Truth.com is one of those organizations working to eliminate tobacco from our society. And I'm not here to defend tobacco. I mean, I think it's someone's own business if they want to smoke. I really don't care if you smoke. That's your business. It is bad for your health, though. I applaud private organizations for trying to get that truth out there. I get it. And I also believe marijuana is very bad for your health and dangerous to the development of young brains and ultimately much worse than tobacco for a society. There's organizations like Citizens Against Legalizing Marijuana, CALM, which brings those lights to fact. But I've always been fascinated that the animus of tobacco when it comes to the liberal left is like it is with oil companies. I mean, it's like it's the enemy. We got to get them, and Truth.com has been putting out how Amanda, I think her name is pronounced Seales, Seales, out in Washington, D.C. She's in this ad that Truth.com's been putting out about how tobacco is profiling, targeting minority neighborhoods, and more specifically black neighborhoods. And that, why is it that tobacco producers are targeting blacks? And makes it very sinister, and it may be. But have you noticed that there's another dangerous industry that does the same thing, but the left doesn't seem to notice that profiling? And the profiling by another murderous industry that peddles death isn't getting the same kind of acknowledgement for their assault on the black population that tobacco is. Margaret Sanger was the founder of Planned Parenthood. She was a racist. And in 1939, she launched the Negro Project. Her goal was to eliminate human weeds and human waste from our society. And today, Planned Parenthood is following her lead. In New York City, more black babies are aborted than born alive. The eugenic racism of Planned Parenthood is well documented. From a website called TooManyAborted.com comes this information. Today, nearly 40% of all African American pregnancies end in induced abortion. Fatherlessness and poverty are rampant. Unintended pregnancy rates in the black community continue to rise. Today, the same mouthpieces for Planned Parenthood are claiming lack of access, while black women access abortion clinics at 5 times the rate of white women. Abortion kills more black lives, 363,705, than all other cases of death combined, 285,522 yearly. Abortion, no matter the race, is a tragedy. But in the black community, it is epidemic. Mainstream media, black celebrities, healthcare professionals, and so-called black leaders continue to shill for Planned Parenthood, while our churches, who stood against injustice during the Civil Rights Movement, are mostly silent. Regardless, the truth screams loud and clear. Under the false liberty of reproductive freedom, we are killing our very future. That's from TooManyAborted.com. Planned Parenthood targets black neighborhoods. Death by tobacco? How about death before you can even take your first breath? Why aren't the liberal left Democrats upset about that kind of profiling? Where's the liberal left Democrats' truth ad about America's genocide of unborn babies and how the abortion butchers target black neighborhoods? Alex, you begin with this one.
Well, if you read 1984 and study George Orwell, this ideologue ability to hold two completely contrary concepts in your mind without any problem, any disharmony, is typical of that kind of thinking. It's what's being taught in college today. You don't look at the facts; you look at the ideal. It doesn't matter what Russia did; it's what they were trying to accomplish. It doesn't matter what we accomplished; it's that we didn't try to do what the Russians did. So it's entirely possible to be promoting a woman. I've heard Hillary Clinton do speeches on the wonders of Margaret Sanger, and yet, if you like you say, if you look at the results of Sanger's philosophy, if you look at the basis of her philosophy, it's racist in the worst possible type. So you can't. The problem is, of course, that when you try to deal with these people, they don't respond to logic. They don't respond to arguments and facts. They only respond to their true belief.
All right, Dennis. I just gave out my opinion about the fact that I think that Planned Parenthood is targeting black neighborhoods, the black community, and the black community has bought into the propaganda and don't realize they're being profiled. Or do they?
Well, I think all of the concerns that you have mentioned, again, are covered over in such a way to avoid talking about the elephant in the room. You're talking about the death. Well, they don't admit it's a life. They don't think it's a life. So there is no death going on. It's just a woman and her body. It's just some protoplasm, whatever, products of conception. Mm-hmm. There is no discussion because that would
just a blob of faceless blob of tissue.
So it's her body.
Right.
There's the father, whether it be a husband or an unknown father, has no rights about his half of that creation. But the baby grows within the woman. It's her body, so she has all control of it, and they don't view abortion as death. The old thing about anti-life, pro-life. They call the pro-life people now anti-choice people because they don't want to talk about the word life, and they don't focus on the demise of a baby because it's not a baby. So when you take those issues out, now you're just talking about, well, does a woman have a right to do what she feels is best for her? And if she's economically challenged or all the right, or she didn't plan on getting pregnant, then she's doing herself and society, everybody a favor by going to Planned Parenthood and taking care of this. But they don't view it as a life. And so the main thrust of what you're talking about, they don't even acknowledge.
On the back cover of my book, Silenced Screams, Abortion in a Virtuous Society, if you want to purchase it, just go to douglasvgibbs.com/books.php. Silenced Screams, Abortion in a Virtuous Society. On the back cover, I wrote this. Satan's greatest trick has been to convince an entire civilization that he doesn't exist. His second greatest trick has been to convince civilization that killing their own children is not evil. How is it that we have an entire segment of society who actually believes that the spilling of innocent blood, the killing of a child in the womb, that mothers turning against their own children is not a problem? Is it scales over their eyes? Is it ignorance? Is it misinformation?
I think part of it is it's like a siren call. If you don't want to be responsible for your actions, if you don't want to be responsible for raising a child, and you can justify, rationalize, accept an opinion that it's really not a child, it's really not a life, that helps get rid of any traditional guilt or shame that, maybe 100 years ago people had, because they generally viewed that as a baby.
Well, I believe that the reality is even more sinister than that. And I put across my point on that by asking a question. To whom is this innocent blood being sacrificed to? Thank God in the Inland Empire we have, different organizations out there fighting for the life of children. We got Birth Choice Temecula. Birth Choice Temecula, matter of fact, I've been involved with them, and they're doing great work. You got a Go Mobile for Life, which is a mobile unit. You've got Corona Life Services. You've got Birth Choice of Hemet, which was just absorbed into the Birth Choice Temecula group. You've got all these different groups that are fighting for life. And I think that over the years, we are winning the battle. In 1993, there were 1.6 million abortions in the United States. In 2013, there was 1.2 million. Let's see, in 1993, there was over, I believe it was 150 or 200,000, right around there, somewhere in those numbers, abortion clinics. Now there's slightly over 50,000 in the United States.
Well, but are the smaller ones being taken over by bigger ones?
Well, perhaps, but the number has reduced. And here's the big one. In 1993, a poll of Americans, 33% said that they were pro-life. A couple years ago, Gallup did a poll asking the same question. 51% said they were pro-life. I'm a firm believer we're winning on this issue. I think that we need to be examining the issue of abortion. We need to be seeking understanding of the age-old issue. We'll be back after the top of the hour ads with more Constitution Radio.